So why do women light the Shabbos candles? And this is an interesting thing. Presumably, if candlelighting is a kavod / oneg / shaloi kashel shalom bayit issue, so like this, if it's a shalom bayit issue, you can say tov ner ishu veto, right? Just like next week we'll have Hanukkah, ner ishu veto, meaning someone has to make sure there's light in the house. What about the kavod v'oneg aspects? There too, presumably it's a chiyuv on the house to be lit, right? So when someone does that, it doesn't really matter who did it, right? This, I'm leading up to the question of what happens if not everyone is together, right? What happens if some of the family are elsewhere? We're going to see that the assumption the poskim say is that, let's say the husband is in miluim, or let's say the husband is away on business. So the poskim's assumption is the wife lights, and that's motzi, that aspect, the kavod, the oneg, whatever aspect, and the only thing that the husband who's separate has left is the shaloi kashel, those things, the just having the basic, pleasure of not bumping into things on Shabbos. Before we start all of that, I kept on saying that the wife is the one who does that mitzvah. So why is our assumption when they're separated and they're both going to be lighting, why is my assumption that the wife is the one who does it, is the one who's doing the mitzvah? So first of all, the examples I gave are cases in which the husband is away. What happens if the wife is away on business? There presumably it would be the other way around, right? Because your home is probably the central thing. What happens if the wife is away with the kids, visiting family, and the husband stayed back for business, to continue working or whatever? Then, I don't know, the walls of the house are what's kavah. Presumably you think where the family is what really makes it happen. So I'm not quite sure. Either way, the minhag is that the wife lights the candles. Why is that? So there's a medrash and there's a Rambam. Obviously, the Rambam is not really going to like this medrash. He's going to go for something more pshat. The medrash says, "Mitzvat hanel, lefi shaya adam nerosh al kadosh baruch hu, sheneemar ner Hashem nishmat adam. Bat hachava v'chibta oto. Amar kadosh baruch hu yinaten la mitzvat hanel, kedei sheyitkaper la al haner shekibta. Lechach nitztavu anashim lemitzvat hanel b'Shabbat. אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא, אם הייתם זהירים בנר שבת, אף אני מאיר לכם, שנאמר והיה לך השם לאור עולם. So, now, it's interesting. Why? I'm not going to go too deeply into this because Midrash is really not my field, but I just want to point out, it is, I find it interesting that we say Chava is the one that put out the light. What about Adam? He was also part of that sin. So you can say Adam got his punishment that he has to work. The wife got her punishment that she has to suffer childbirth. I don't know. I think there's what to analyze and to mefalpel here. I'm not going to go too deeply into this, as I said, but just pondering what this medrash actually means. And the Rambam says something that was very true in his time. Now, there are two ways of reading the Rambam. One way is to say, in Chazal's time, that was the norm, and therefore that's the way Chazal. That's when they first established this mitzvah. That's the way it was made, right? That's the way it was. What's the word I'm looking for? It was established. It was right instated. That's one way of looking at the Rambam. Another way of looking at the Rambam is whoever does everything else in the home should also light candles, right? And then presumably it would be open, right? You can say, all right, so it depends on what happens in your home. So, whatever. You can argue that nowadays this is still more prominent. But could it change? So if Chazal instituted this mitzvah in such a way because in their time it was like that, so nothing will ever change it. So again, I'm just saying a lumdish point here, that sometimes a takana was instituted in a certain way, and then even if things change, that's just the way the takana works, right? Sometimes Chazal say this is the Chazal tell us this is the reason we're doing things, and therefore if you do otherwise, so you should act otherwise as well. So I'm not sure which one the Rambam is saying, but just pointing that out. Anyway, so what happens if the family is separated? Says the Tashbetz. Tashbetz, the Talmud of the Mara Rottenberg, right? So we're talking about one of the Rishonim here. Otam Bachurim Holchim Lilmod, not the later Tashbetz, right? Who was, I think, contemporary of the Beit Yosef. So not that Tashbetz, the earlier Tashbetz. Otam Bachurim Holchim Lilmod Mimakom Lamakom, Shelo Etzel Neshotehem, שצריכים להדליק בערב שבת נר ולברך עליו, משום להדלקת נר בשבת חובה משום שלום בית. פירוש שלא ייכשל בעץ או באבן או בשום דבר. אבל מישהו אצל אשתו בעיר אינו צריך להדליק בחדרו מפני שאשתו מדלקת בשבילו. So what he's saying is that the wife is lighting the house candle anyway, but you still have to make sure you don't bump into things where you are. So even if you're separate from your wife, so she'll light for all the reasons, but still you have to fulfill the mitzvah of making sure that you're comfortable where you are. And that's why you'll make a separate bracha on that.
I'm not sure that I understand your distinction between all the reasons being applicable at home and only some of the reasons being applicable to the husband outside the home. Presumably, the kavod ועונג Shabbat applies to him just as much. He has neither kavod nor oneg Shabbat from the fact that his wife is lighting candles somewhere else, and he has his own mitzvah of kavod ועונג Shabbat.
Nachon. I agree. I was just pointing out that the Tashbetz didn't seem to go in that direction. He seems to assume, and that since he was, that's the reason I pointed is when the Rishonim is because everyone else seems taking this direction as well. He seems to assume the family was Yotze already wherever she is. The family was Yotze already because she lit. Now the husband has to light wherever he is, just only because. Otherwise, why does he have to explain Shabbat? Why didn't you just say you have to have candles if you're having a Sudat Shabbat?
Because he said he's not saying that the reason is because of kavod or oneg Shabbat. He's saying the reason for adlakat nerot is shalom bayit. Don't tell me that shalom bayit has to do with like being at home in your regular bayit. No, shalom bayit means don't trip on things. So that's applicable also when you're outside your house.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, we're gonna have to test if this works because I think my impression was that poskim read him like that, but I see what you're saying. Yaakov's saying, in case you thought Shalom Bayit meant the way a couple leads their life at home, so he explains that's not what we're talking about here. But there's still the kavod ועונג aspect that has to be done in the Seudah, and that's wherever Seudah is, wherever you're having your Seudah. So she can't be motzi you kavod ועונג at home if you're not having the Seudah there. A very fair point. Let's see what the post can do with this, because maybe I don't need to go that far. Anyway, Chanukah is coming. Why am I pointing out Chanukah is coming?
Assumption that the man isn't eating by himself in any case. Like maybe there's an assumption that he's being, even if he's outside the home, he's somewhere else.
But if he's
lighting the candles already, so I know then that would contradict.
But if he's somewhere else, then he's also not going to trip because they're gonna.
Right, you're right. Yeah. Forget that.
No, so it's it's a problem. I'm not sure. Okay. You're saying right that could have saved us, except if you assume there are candles wherever he is, so none of the reasons apply either. So but maybe you're right. Maybe you don't need to go that far. maybe you can just say that in Achinam he has to do all these mitzvot wherever he is, and just pointing out that Shalom Bayit is making sure you don't trip over things, and then you have to and then all the reasons continue applying wherever you are.
Do we have an example that Shalom Bayit in other places means not to trip, not to stumble? Or does Shalom Bayit have more of a relationship model in other contexts?
So I'm under the same impression that in other places it has more to do with the home, the family, etc. In this case, I saw both Rashi, right? If you remember Rashi back here, right? He connected the Shalom, right? We saw that in Rashi connected the Shalom that the Gemara is talking about, the Shalom Bayit, right? Mishum Shalom Beito, Rashi explains that as not to trip over things, not to bump into things. And also the Tashbetz is clearly talking about that, right? Very clearly connecting those. So in this case, even if it's unique, I think it's even stronger, right? Rav Baruch, because if this is a unique case that justifies Rashi and the Tashbetz is elaborating and saying Shlom Bayit. When I say Shlom Bayit, I mean not bumping into things, not tripping over things, right? Why was I saying that Chanukah is coming? Because the famous halacha in Chanukah, if a person is away from their own house, one way of joining, of being part of the Chanukah candles wherever you are, is to give some money to the host, to the owner, whoever owns the house, and then you become part of the mitzvah. That's what the Mordechai brings here. Mishatifna beprite katav Rav Yah duodin lekol ner mitzvah, lekol ner mitzvah, ner Shabbat, ner Yom Tov. So if you're away, you could give your hosts a shekel, right? And that'll and be part of their mitzvah, just like we have the same idea on Chanukah. And then you partook in lighting the home. Shulchan Aruch cites both of these. Bachurim holchim lelmod chutz lebeitam, tzrichim להדליק נר שבת בחדרם ולברך עליו. אבל מי שהוא אצל אשתו, אין צריך להדליק בחדרו ולברך עליו, לפי שאשתו מברכת בשבילו. That's the tashbetz, the tashbetz קטן, not the later tashbetz. And ציב זין, אורח שאין לו חדר מיוחד וגם אין מדליקים עליו בביתו, צריך לשתף בפוטה. Right? If there's no way for a person to be yotzei on their own, they could give a shekel. By the way, this can also be a solution where we're eating out in the previous case we discussed, right? In the Rivot Ephraim, person's eating out and then going back home, they can give the hosts a shekel and for the Shabbos candles as well. That's also a solution they can use. See the Chayei Adam. I think this is the reason I was thinking in those terms. צריך להדליק בכל החדרים שמשתמש שם, נר שבת הוא משום שלום בית, שלא יקשר בעץ ואבן. ומישהו אצל אשתו, כיוון שהיא מברכת על הנרות בחדר אחד, אין צריך לברך על הדלקת שאר החדרים. אבל אם איש בדרך, וכן בחורים ולומדים ויש להם חדר, צריכים להדליק ולברך. You're right, and again, the question is, what are we negating here, right? The Chayadam again is saying
maybe what we're negating is Hilchot Chanukah, like
interesting. Okay, I don't think you have to go that far. I think you can just say what you said before, because I was reading the Chayadam earlier, and I just automatically read him as if you're home, so your wife lights the Shabbos candles and she has kavanah on the whole lighting system you have in your house. And therefore, you might put the nightlight on in your room, but that's part of the Shabbos candle that she's making a bracha on. But if you're away, you have to make a bracha, even though all you're doing is making sure you don't trip. But as you both pointed out, why are you assuming that? I was assuming that because that's what it sounded to me. Does it sound like to me in the Tashbetz? But you're right that it's not necessarily what he's saying. He's saying if you're away, so the Shabbos candles have nothing to do with you. It's how are you having your Sudat Shabbat? Okay, so figure that out. Now again, you might be yotzei by giving them a shekel, right? They should have a pruta. Fine, that's fine. If that's what you're doing, that's also okay. But you definitely have a chiyuv. All the previous chiyuvim still apply. In my mind, connecting to the Shtat Tashbet, it sounded to me like she's motziu kavod v'oneg either way. What about shlom bayit, not tripping? Well, if you're at home, if you're home, shlom bayit, not tripping. So she's motzi, it's part of that. If you're away, shlom bayit, not tripping, you have to do it yyourself. But as Yaakov's saying, not necessarily. He could say at home, you still have to make sure there's adequate lighting around the house. You don't make a bracha on that because the wife is lighting, including those, right? If you're away, so everything is still up. So everything applies. You have to light candles wherever you're eating. So
you know what? Maybe I can go back to what Michelle said before, because right, they keep talking about the case sheyesh lehem cheder. So maybe right at home, the wife is lighting where you eat, and your lighting in your room is like subsumed under that. Where you're eating out somewhere else, but you have your own room to sleep. So for whatever reason, you're not as subsumed under the host's main lighting in the dining room or the cheder ochel or whatever, and you do need to light on the what's usually more minor thing of in your room, which is basically what you said.
So you're saying that maybe an example would be if you were bedewed and your wife wasn't, and she lit candles, where she was eating in the dining room table, but you have to eat your food in your room.
Once again, we have to thank Hashem for Corona, so we could be grateful for nafkaminot, right?
Very good, very good.
Yefeh. So, right, you're saying what happens if you happen to be technically in the same home, but you're separated, right? Because you're quarantined in the attic, right? So then you're taking care of your own lighting. Just to go back to Yaakov's point, I agree that it is a bit strange that if a person's eating out, right? If a person's away. A person's away on business. We're going to get to the businessman soon. A person's away on business. He has a hotel room and he eats in the dining room. Who's going to light in the dining room? Whoever. Or he's being hosted by people and he has his own quarters, right? So in his own quarters, he has to take care of the lighting. And then, what do you want to say? That the wife at home is the one who's being motzi him kavod v'oneg Shabbat by having Shabbos candles at that Shabbos table, but where you're eating, the balabait lit already, balat habayit, right? Where you're being hosted, balat habayit is going to light, and that's going to mean, and that doesn't motzi you, even though those are the Shabbos candles you're going to enjoy your Sudat too, right? Why say that? Why not say the other way around, right? Why not say that the host that you're being yotzei kavod ve'oneg from the host's Shabbos candles, and either you can give them pruta and then yotzei, but still you have to make sure that your quarters are adequately lit, or you light in your own quarters and then you can make a bracha.
No, I didn't mean that your wife far away is being motzi you in kavod ve'oneg, but
that's what I said. No, I was pointing out why what you're saying makes more sense.
Right. Okay, I agree with myself.
You didn't want to argue with that, right? So
I guess I still want to understand why exactly is it different. In other words, if we're saying that technically, like if I were to light in my own quarters at home, I don't need to say a bracha because my wife's bracha in the dining room was motzi me. Why is that really different?
Right, which leads to Glenn's question: how far do you need to be? What happens if you're just in the attic, but you're in quarantine? So technically you're separate, but you're in the same home, you're in the same roof, right? Is that also? That's a fair point. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I'd say in that case, right? Because if the husband's away, so he definitely doesn't need to lie. He definitely doesn't need to make a bracha, right? Yaakov says, wait, but if you want to say she's being motzi in her own home, she's being motzi also, even though you take care. If the wife only lights the Shabbos candles and the husband takes care of all the other lighting and the Shabbos clock, etc., the wife still makes the bracha for everything, right?
It seems like it's really like
I guess because there she also benefits, right? In that case, she also benefits from those lights, and that's why her bracha is being motzi that already. So there's no room for you to make another bracha. But if you're somewhere else, she's not benefiting from those lights you're lighting. And then the answer to Glenn's would be an achinami. If you're in quarantine in the attic, then she won't be able to, right? If you're in quarantine in the attic, then she won't get pleasure out of those lights, and then you would make another bracha, right? That's the way. That's how that would work out.
It sounds to me like they're kind of it's kind of like a chovat habayit, but in the sense of like a chovat mishpacha, like
Right.
and so at home we're together accomplishing this one mitzvah. So she'll light in the dining room, but I'm still part of the same mitzvah by lighting in the other room. But when I'm away, so it's true that my hosts will be lighting in the chadar ochel, but I still need to lidog that's me in my bedroom. Like it's not quite the same thing. It's not.
So when you're at home, it's not latzmi. When you're at home, you're making the family, the home, the house, the family, right? Beito, which is both, right?
Right, exactly.
Means both the home and the family, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then I think Guns Nafkamina would stand, right? Because if you really are benefiting from different lights that Shabbat, even though if you're under the same roof, that would still work. You want to say something, Misham?
No, I was just going to say that the conflatation of conflating family and home, like that raises then a lot of questions. Say, like dirat ravakim or dirat ravakot, like what's the relationship there between the people living in the home in terms of who benefit, like whether the same dynamic still applies as it would in a family setting. One person can say if one person's eating, like.
Right.
Question.
That's a good question. Presumably there we'd also say, right? That's interesting because presumably
it kind of reminds me of the Shevet HaLevi.
Right, I was about to say, like Shevet HaLevi, right? Presumably no one trumps the other, right? As opposed to in the home, my wife definitely trumps me, there's no question, right? But on many scales, on many fronts. But when you have a singles apartment, so no one is trumping the other, and therefore everyone could make the bracha, right?
Right. I was just asking, like, if one person is eating out, can they rely on the person?
Right.
Like the same dynamic of one person being away, one person being at home, one
right. In those dynamics, could you say someone's being motzimi at home? What do you mean by home? Define home. When it's a family, the definitions are very simple. It's not a family, it becomes more complicated. I gave a chabura earlier about making up parshiot. When you miss parshiot, when you have to. Right, there's an Or Zarua who says that the Tshuvat Or Zarua, if you miss a parsha for whatever reason, like this year was because of Corona, obviously, you miss the whole tzibur doesn't read a parsha. You have to make up the parsha the following week. The Maharamins was asked about a tzibur that had a fight during Parshat Vayakhel Pekudei. So asked, why did it happen during Parshat Vayakhel Pekudei? Because the Maharamins writes a few things, and two of them are one is we don't complete double parshas, and the other is we don't complete a parsha if it's from a different sefer. So I said, why did it happen in Vayakhel Pekudei? Because Baruch Hu made sure it happens at a time at which he could say both these nafkaminot, right? Because that's why Baruch Hu brings things, just continuation to Michelle's example and to Glenn's example, right? Why does Baruch Hu bring COVID to the world so we could have all this Torah? So, which really threw me off. So now we're going to get to the crux of it. Not the crux, but at least until now you're thinking, why was I saying all these strange things when Yaakov's sounds more convincing? Sidur Derech HaChaim was written by the Netivot. בחורים ההולכים ללמוד חוץ לביתם, ויש להם חדר מיוחד ללון שם, ואוכלים בבית אחר, צריכים להדליק נר בחדרם ולברך עליו, שגם בזה יש שלום בית. אבל מי שיש לו אישה ומדלקת עליו בביתו, מדליק בחדר מיוחד לו, ואינו מברך, שאשתו מברכת בשבילו. שאשתו מברכת בשבילו. So my assumption, right? So he's saying what I was saying, right? Except he's saying worse, quote unquote, right? He says the Neri Sheveto aspect happened already. So now you still have the Shlom Bayit, but you don't make a bracha only for Shlom Bayit, right? So my assumption was that the Chai Adam was saying, and the Tashbetz, they're both saying you make a bracha even though it's only fulfilling Shlom Bayit because Kavod V'Oneg happened in your home already, right? Ishto Mevachet Bishvilo. She's 6,000 miles away because you're in a conference in New York and she's in Yerushalayim, right? Lo meshane. She made the bracha for you. She was motzi you those aspects. You only have the Shlom Bayit aspect, and the Shlom Bayit aspect you don't make a bracha just for that. Now, so what's the Chai Adam arguing? So you can say one of two things. Now I realize because since I read Derech Chaim before I read the Chai Adam, I assumed that Chai Adam agrees with all his assumptions, except, yes, you can make a bracha on Shlom Bayit only. But as you said, you don't have to go that far. You can say, I can't be Yotzei the Kavod V'Oneg that's happening 6,000 miles away. What about my Kavod V'Oneg? Right? Now the Mishnah Berurah went in agreed to the Chai Adam, or like the Chai Adam. Haynu shesh lehem nashim ela sheholchin chutz leveitam, ve'af sheishto medleket beveito, eino niftar b'virkat ishto. Right, unlike the Rav Milisa, who says that you shouldn't make a bracha if the wife is lighting at home, because he has a much stronger nerush uveito understanding of the whole thing. Which again, according to the Rav Milisa, I have no idea how to answer Michelle's question. Right. Right, singles apartments. You can't say what their mothers are being motzi them if they don't have mothers. I mean, I don't even know how to begin answering that. I'm not sure what to. But I mean, even if they do have mother, right? Sometimes it could be maybe they don't have a family, but they're definitely separated from their family. They're living on their own somewhere else. I'm not sure what I'd say in Michelle's case, according to the Rav Milisa. Luckily, we don't hold like him, so life is easier. The Chai Adam, the Mishnah Berurah, they say, no, you light, the wife isn't motzi. Now again, still, one of two reasons, as I said, right? Either she isn't motzi because you could make a bracha just for the Shlom Bayit aspect, which I think it sounds like that because, hold on. כיוון שיש לו חדר מיוחד במקום שמתארח שם, וכל שכן אינו נשוי מחויב להדליק, right? He's definitely saying, even if you're in a place where someone else is lighting the Shabbat, right? You're being hosted by someone else. So, your family is lighting wherever they are at home. Fine. Now, your hosts are lighting in their living room, but you are separated from your own home. And now the lights that you're lighting for the Shlom Bayit, just so you won't trip over things on Shabbat, those you're lighting for yourself, so you make a bracha, right? And therefore there's distinction between where you light in your own home, right? Even if I take care of the lights around the house and my wife lights, but we're running the same home, so a bracha applies to all those as well. But if I'm away, it doesn't apply to that, and then I make a bracha even if I only light the lights for Shlom Bayit. Now, as Yaakov pointed out, that's easy. Can you say more and say, but the wife wasn't. Can you go more extreme than what we said about the Rimilisa, and say the wife's bracha had nothing to do with you if you're away. She didn't motzi you at all. It's not only because you don't want to trip over things. That's true in those cases, but she isn't motzi you kavod v'oneg either, right? Just pointing out that was the machloket there. There's the machloket, the two levels of arguing with Rimilisa. I know we went on a bit of a complication here. In a moment, I'll try to summarize the three. The three directions here. Yes.
It seems from the Derech HaChaim that relationship is the most significant, whereas in another context it might be where your presence is, which takes precedence. So it's relationship or presence, if you want to conceptualize it that way.
Right. So the Rimilisa, it's based on the relationship, right? And then whether you're present or not, right? So I say those are the three levels. Just to sum this up, the Rimilisa says the chiyuv of shlom bayit. I think I'd say like this to answer Yaakov's question. I'd say, to make the Rimilisa sound more convincing, to make more sense, the takana was established in such a way that it applied to the family, to the home. And therefore you make a bracha, and therefore one bracha has to be made, one lighting has to happen in the home, wherever that is. That's the way the takana was made to begin with. And therefore the wife is motzi the whole family, wherever they are, when it comes to kavod v'oneg. But you never get away from the need of just having light wherever you are, which is true all around your own house, except there she's benefiting from the light as well. But once you're away, says the Rimilisa, the fact that you do have to make sure there's adequate lighting, but it has nothing to do with the original takana, the reason for the bracha. The bracha was established as a bracha on lighting up your home, and that happened whether you're there or not. I think that's the way to read the Rimilisa. And then we said, how can you argue with him? One of two ways. You can say she's being motzi you at home, kavod v'oneg, fair enough, but you still have the shlom bayit aspect, meaning not bumping into things aspect, not tripping over things aspect, and you make a bracha on that. Or alternatively, you have to light wherever you're eating because that's your kavod v'oneg. Seder, if she's 6,000 miles away, that doesn't really help you. I thought about what Michelle pointed out just now about the time difference, the time lapse, right? By the time, if she is, right? I'm assuming that by the time Rav Baruch's wife lights their Shabbos candles, so their children in Yerushalayim, right? Their candles are out already, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I mean, that's significant because I think there are some people who say that when you're at the single stage, you can rely on your parents' candle lighting, but that doesn't, like my first Shabbat in Yerucham, all of a sudden I panicked because I was like, wait, what am I supposed to do now? Because it doesn't make sense to rely on my parents' candle lighting when I'm accepting Shabbat 7 hours before they are.
Right. I'm not sure how that would work. In other words, would we say the kavod v'oneg Shabbat of Shabbat Parashat Vayishlach? Is that the way it works, or is it the current? I'm not sure how to think about this. I have to think about it. Now,
Are there any other examples of mitzvot like this? With I'm just trying to think of like conditions in order to be motzi someone. I'm asking.
Hanukkah is the classic.
Where there's almost no like conditions in order to be motzi other than your connection to the person, like your familial connection to the person.
Right. Hanukkah is like the classic, no one knows how to explain that, right? Because, as I said, how does Neri Shuveto work in a singles apartment? So we take the easy cop out and say, yeah, everyone lights everywhere anyway, so whatever, right? But Nikaradin, can one person be motzi the others if it's a singles apartment? I'm not sure. I'm sure someone wrote about this, but at the moment, offhand, I'm not sure what I'd say if someone just asked me, like, right now, I need to know. Am I motzi from that? L'chora, yes, it's your apartment, but you're not really connected, right, familially. As I said, I'm not sure, right? So that would be the classic parallel, I guess. Even though Shabbos candles are a lot more, on the one hand, with Hanukkah candles are a lot more makeup. You light wherever, right? Wherever you are, light. Go ahead. With Hanukkah candles, Shabbos candles are a lot more technical, right? They're useful candles. It's funny because, as I pointed out a couple of times, I think in children's mind, I remember myself as a child, I always assumed that Shabbos candles are like Hanukkah. You light them in the corner, far away from everyone. You see them. Right? Right? Not at all. Shabbos candles, the whole point is to use them, to enjoy them, to benefit from them, right? If you don't benefit from them, that could be a problem, right? The whole post-game's issue is you don't benefit from them. The Hanukkah candles you light outside, right, outside your house, and then you see them. You see them better, but they also give you more light wherever they are, right? Often it works the other way around, right? You light your Shabbos candles indoors in a corner, and no one benefits from them because the room is well lit anyway. The Hanukkah candles you light outside your door, where it's dark, and then you go in and out, and you say, "Oh, thank goodness for Hanukkah," because now we can see better when we go in and out, right? So it's not really supposed to work like that, obviously. So I'm just saying, either way, there's room for leniency, but I'm not sure. Kitzur, it's not so pashut. The Divrei Yatziv points out if the whole idea here. So here's the thing. If really, I just want to summarize the three aspects we said, because they'll lead us to the Divrei Yatziv, who has an interesting point. That could be another nafkamina to all this. The Rimi Lisa says the takana was the home should light, and apart from that, you should also make sure that you have light wherever you light. So once the home lit, you don't make another bracha. Now you can argue with him in one of two ways. You can say, despite the home lighting, my lighting just so I won't trip over things it justifies making an additional bracha. Or you could say, lighting at home has nothing to do with me, because at least I need to not trip over things, but also I have a chiyuv of kavod v'oneg wherever I am.
That would be the Chaye Adam, right?
Sorry?
That would be the Chaye Adam.
That would be the Chaye Adam. Again, Yaakov said that even the Chaye Adam doesn't necessarily mean that. But yeah, that was definitely my initial reading in the Chaye Adam. Yaakov just said that also the Chaye Adam doesn't necessarily mean that extreme. Now see what the Divrei Yatziv says. Here's the nafkamina. So if you're away, right, you're being hosted by someone else, right? The family stayed home and the husband went somewhere else and is being hosted by other people. So he has his own quarters. So we said, Mishnah Berurah says, light in your own quarters and make a bracha. But says the Divrei Yatziv, אם כן, כשיש אורה הרבה מאור האלקטרי שמה, תו לא שייך מצווה כשמוסיף הנר. וכנ"ל שבחיי גבנה אומרים לכולי עלמא שאינו מברך על תוספת אורה. Now, why not? So I understood he says, like...
Because it's the husband, it doesn't bother him as much.
He's why?
Because it's the husband and it doesn't bother him as much not to light candles.
Right. So, יכול להיות. We can see in Shema Shrak Chatan in a moment. יכול להיות. But I understood that he's saying like this. He's saying, in terms of kavod v'oneg Shabbat, your wife was motzi you already, just like the Rimi Lisa assumed. Now, if you actually light Shabbos candles that help you not trip, so you make another bracha. But you have the light in the bathroom, right? You have your own little quarter wherever you're staying, right? You have the light in the bathroom. That's an adequate light, and that's it. The balabait put it on, right? Your host put it on before you came into the room, and you have adequate light. You're done. So why are you lighting another candle? Only for this, you're not really doing anything. So forget it, don't make a bracha. Now Yaakov would say that's only true if the husband's on the business trip. What happens if the wife's on the business trip? Then we have the Shlomo Zalman who says the wife will be upset if she doesn't light Shabbos candles. She should definitely light, right? Shema Chata says it like this: Isha madlika nerot Shabbat, motzi'a בהדלקתה גם את בני הבית הקבועים שאינם נמצאים בבית בשבת זו. So he read the Chai Adam like me and not like Yaakov, right? Now, the Chochmah, right? Because I read the Shema Chata before. And that's why I assumed, and even assumed Yaakov's reading, even though I agree that in the Chai Adam it's a fair reading. But Shema Chata definitely says that, right? The wife is motzi everyone who's under her, how do you say, auspices, jurisdiction? I don't know, right? Anyone who lives with her in her home, right? Going back to what Michelle said, what about people who don't live in her home? Good question. כגון כאשר הבעל נמצא בעיר אחרת, בשירות צבאי, בבית חולים, right? There could be many reasons why a person's away. בני הבית האלה שאינם נמצאים בשבת זו בבית, אוכלים במקום שמדליקים בו נרות שבת, וגם יש אור בחדר בו הם לנים, right? So there's no reason to add any כבוד ועונג Shabbat where they're eating. And there's no justification to make a bracha because of the shlom bayit, of not tripping over things. אפילו אם האור בא לחדרם רק מן הפרוזדור או מן הרחוב, הרי הם פטורים לגמרי מהדלקת נרות. So to make a bracha, you're patur. Now, as Yaakov said, I think Rav Shlomo Zalman would agree, right? If the wife is away from the family, then we say, Ein kaz davar, we never tell the wife that she's patur, right? Why? She wouldn't let us tell her that she's patur, right? אחים הם אוכלים או לנים לבד בחדרם ואין שם כל אור, הרי הם חייבים בהדלקת נרות בברכה. וגם כאשר הם מוזמנים לאכול בבית שבו מדליקים נרות שבת בחדר האוכל, אבל אחרי האוכל הם חוזרים לחדרם לישון שם והוא חשוך, דהיינו שאין בו כל אור, לא מן הפרוזדור ולא מן הרחוב, חייבים הם בהדלקת נרות בברכה והדליקו נרות גדולים שהדליקו את בואם לחדרם, as we said before. אמנם ודאי שאם קיים חשש כלשהו שדלקה בהדלקת נרות דליקים ללא השגחה, מוטב שהדליקו נרות בחדרים אלו, מצווה יחשב להם. As we said a few times, obviously if it's dangerous, you should always refrain from fire when it's dangerous, obviously. More important to refrain from such dangers, from not burning your quarters down, than to do the mitzvah of Shabbos candles. But, right, the Shema, so I still agree with Yaakov that the Chai Adam didn't necessarily mean this. Just want to say, I think it's very fair to read the Chai Adam as saying, wherever you are, you weren't yotze from the wife's lighting because she's not there, because she lit in a different home. She didn't light in your home. I mean, maybe she lit in the home that you own, but that's not your home at the moment because you're somewhere else, right? We see the argument, the machlokes between the Rimi Lisa and the Shlomo Zalman, or the Shemach or Neubert, right? Rimi Lisa says the wife is motzi the husband legamre, right? Shlomo Zalman says she's motzi the husband, but he still could make a bracha on the shlom bayit aspect, right? So those would be the three positions, I think, right? It's a double machloket. First machloket, is the wife lighting at home motzi the husband? Second machloket, even so the Chai Adam, I think it's fair to assume that the Tashbetz and Chai Adam didn't necessarily mean that, the not necessarily mean that, and they'd say, yeah, when the wife lights at home, she isn't motzi the people who aren't there. She's only motzi whoever is at home. The Gaon Melissa and Shlomo Zalman agree that she is motzi. The question is, does that disqualify any other bracha? Melissa says it disqualifies any other bracha. You can't make a bracha wherever you are anymore. And Shlomo Zalman says that you can make a bracha, but only if it's justifiable. Here will be a lot more strict. First of all, because it's not the wife, and second, because the kavod v'oneg aspects have already been fulfilled. All you have left now is truly making sure you don't trip and then only if it's truly needed, only then you'd make the bracha according to our Shlomo Zalman. So those are the three positions